Good afternoon and welcome to SoCal Digital Symposium webinar. We have with us Asher Dahan, President and Senior Cybersecurity Engineer and President of Accurate Data Networks. Asher is going to talk to us about how small and medium-sized businesses can defend themselves from being tomorrow's next headline and hack. So Asher, welcome.
Thank you, Dana. It's a pleasure to be on the program. We got a lot of topics to provide today to small businesses, and we hope to help small businesses to have better protection for their money, for their data, and a lot of other things that we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, so a little bit more about myself just to start with. Started my career at the age of 14 and way back in time, and that goes 31 years. It was all about electronics and repairing of anything I could put my hands on. That quickly escalated during my military service to more work with computers, more work with security, and taking a very quick turn from there to everything on the Microsoft side of the world, doing a lot of forensic work, data recovery, and security. All of those different skills together help out a great deal when you're trying to think or be in the shoes of the hacker and try to figure out how do they think and what do you need to do to be one step ahead of them. So we're going to start with a few topics that many small businesses would normally ask us, which is what are the first things that we should do when we want to improve the security in our office? And the first one that we typically find to be a major problem starts right at the firewall. And for people that don't know what a firewall is, it's one piece of equipment. It's an electronic device that normally you would get either with your DSL or cable modem. Oftentimes it would come directly from the provider. And the little problem that goes with it is that those devices really were designed to give you internet connection, but not a whole lot of security. It's not Time Warner responsibility to be able to protect you. What we see in those cases, the firmware level, the security, the logging, and many other pieces of critical information are very, very limited. And the consumers still get internet access, but what they don't realize is that a lot of bad guys are able to poke into their network 24/7, just unknowingly to them. We used to hear the old myth that small businesses would say, why would they come after us? We don't really have much. Why wouldn't they go after the big guys? Sadly enough, the way that it works these days, the system is pretty blind from the side of the hacker side. They scan an entire big range of IP addresses, and they can't really tell initially if this is a small company or a big company. They're basically looking for any holes in the system, in the firewall, to be able to get to information. And I've not yet seen any company that don't have something that would be of value. It could be other people's clients' data. It could be their bank accounts. It could be credit cards. It could be something that any client would say there is no way that I can actually lose that piece of information or allow that data to be in the wrong hands. So one of the things that we will suggest, at least from the perimeter side on the firewall level, don't buy the stuff that Best Buy is selling for $50 and consider that to be your firewall. Don't just trust that the modem that you got from your carrier is going to be the one to protect you. It's probably an investment of about $250 to buy at least what we like as one of the vendors called Sonicwall. Dell actually purchased them recently. And with that piece of equipment, you would get a lot of logging, a lot of security, a lot of blocking, a lot of knowing who is doing what to your network, while with the other devices, you're pretty much blind and you're just trusting that no one is doing anything bad. So that one small investment can go a long way. One rule that we have in security is that it's normally the low fruit that get hit the most. So a business that does absolutely nothing is going to be a much bigger target than a larger company that actually have IT people that invested in technology, that got firewalls and people watching the logs, and they got better protections. It's the one that really very naive, very innocent about they conduct business and they think the internet is up and life is good until a bad day that some money disappears out of their account and they don't know what to do about it. A few stories which I think would maybe help out for people to realize how things are going. There's a common case, a common situation of a company, a real estate company in San Diego. This particular company, who is an escrow company, had a pretty nasty breach into their account. And anyone who is in the real estate business know that there are days that probably there would be hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the escrow account before the move from buyer to seller or anything like that. The hackers managed to do a pretty good job and got into one of the computer system that is capable of doing electronic transfer or wire transfer between banks, between institutions. And just when there was $500,000 sitting in the bank account, they cleaned it up. They moved it very quickly to bank accounts in China, in other places. And by the time that the business owners realized what is going on, that money was gone. It got worse when they went into their own bank and say, why don't you give us back the money? Someone stole it from our bank account. And the bad news with that one turned out to be that since the infection was already installed on the client equipment, the bank said, we're not responsible. You did not do a good enough job of protecting your own system. Someone logged in with valid username and password, which they already got. And because of that, you are not getting anything back from us. So the lesson from all of that is if you don't want to end up with litigation and losing money and a lot of problems of that sort, if you're dealing with a lot of money, if you are in real estate, if you are in any kind of a banking situation to transfer a lot of funds, we actually suggest and we recommend for clients to have a completely independent system that would be just for that particular purpose, just for money transfer. It will never browse websites. It will never do anything outside of connecting into a bank account to make the transfer. And not only that, it's even separated from the rest of the network. The bottom line is, it is so limited with what it is doing that for the hackers to be able to come in and install some of their software would be very, very difficult and challenging to get it. Some people would even go to the length of providing a secure wireless connection through a separate carrier, meaning they're on a completely different network. This is just making it very, very difficult for the bad guys to come in from the outside to break in. So that's one thing that we had seen quite often, basically the attempt to go after clients' money. Hacking is all about money. People in the old days used to look at hackers as some kid in a basement that liked to write a script to become famous, that he created some new infection. Those days are gone. It is completely now a real business running from all kind of countries that the United States or other countries would have a hard time to be able to get in, to be able to take over the equipment or the bad guys. And they're just making a lot of money. It's truly an illegal business, but it is a business. So there are things that can be done to be able to prevent those type of attacks. And the two things that I just mentioned, getting a better firewall, separating your money in a better way, are definitely going to help you out. Another thing that come up that we see quite often, anyone probably had gone to Starbucks. Don, I assume you did, right? You visiting Starbucks from time to time?
Always.
Are you using the free public Wi-Fi?
I sure was yesterday.
Oh, not a good idea. So what we had seen actually in some of the security presentations that we do live, hands-on, we would actually bring with us a completely fake device that is actually named Google Starbucks, believe it or not. And what would happen is that anyone with an iPad or an iPhone that once before got connected to Google Starbucks will automatically connect into our piece of equipment. Of course, it's all done with permission. We're not taking anyone's data, but all of their devices would start communicating through our fake device. And we have another laptop that would actually start recording all of the traffic that these people are going through. The same exact exercise can be done in a real Google Starbucks. All that is necessary is for one guy to sit even in a parking lot with a small piece of equipment that would be named Google Starbucks, and I guarantee you that some of the people will jump on this public free Wi-Fi that he is presenting, and as they're doing their stuff, they may be connecting to check emails, they may be connecting to Amazon, they're doing all kind of other stuff. It would be actually recorded. Some of that information would be stolen for them without their knowledge. It actually gets even worse. I mean, one of the presentations that we've done, we actually provide someone in the room a laptop, one of ours, and during that presentation, because he's joining into part of our network unknowingly to him, we actually take control over that machine live. When he's in the room, and we write him a nice note, we remove some files from the machine, and everything else that we want. Probably the worst case scenario is when it's an executive machine that we can install a small piece of malware or a virus with the hope that he goes back into his corporate office and everyone now get infected with this one laptop that visited the public Wi-Fi. So when it comes to public Wi-Fi, there's really probably no exception. It's a simple no, do not use public Wi-Fi. Not at Starbucks, not at LAX, not in the hotel, not anywhere else. Almost all of us got an iPhone or an Android. We all got on it something that is called hotspot. Sometimes you have to pay for that a little bit more. Another $10 a month would actually open up the hotspot. And what that does is it provides you a private cellular connection to the data. So you can actually run this on your phone, open up your laptop, whatever it is that you want to use, your iPad or the phone itself, and you're really using the data connection coming out of your phone. You are not any longer using the shared public Wi-Fi. You now built your own private network. That, in a way, provides you lots and lots of protection from getting infected or even getting your data stolen while you're just sipping your coffee and someone is just getting into your system. And these days, I mean, anyone with a laptop or even with an iPad maybe would have some banking information. Maybe they got personal files on the machine. We all got kind of like our entire life to some level being digitized by now. So this saving of maybe a few dollars by jumping on a public Wi-Fi can end up costing you in identity theft, or your money is stolen, or a whole bunch of other problems. One suggestion for people that travel a lot, because they would say, well, it's so very expensive. If I travel to Europe and I want to use the private cellular data, that is going to cost me so much money. One way to work around it, it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing, is to use something that is called VPN software. It stands for Virtual Private Network. It's a small piece of software that you can install on your phone or your iPad. And the idea behind it is that even if you connect it to public Wi-Fi, you will immediately turn on your VPN software, and now all of the data is being encrypted. So even if someone is attempting to kind of like track or capture what are you doing, it's all going to be gobbledygook that they can't look at anything because it's all being encrypted. That would help out. I still like the idea that avoid public Wi-Fi if at all possible. So you are not going to do it anymore, right, Dana? You're not going to do public Wi-Fi, I hope.
No. I did do the private hotspot at one point, but I am worried because data is very expensive. So you're right, but you know, it's penny wise, pound foolish, for sure.
Of course, I would also suggest that if you're using your own private hotspot, running YouTube and running Netflix and everything like that would eat up your data like crazy. So that is not the purpose. You have to be very careful.
How do I get the VPN software? Where is that available? Because that sounds like if I'm going to be on a public network, that's really my gateway of protection.
You can, one product that is commonly used and highly recommended is called VPN Express. Most of those packages are not expensive. It's probably about $50 for 1 year. And the advantage is that you can travel to different parts of the world, and they have servers set up in different countries to be able to give you the best connection that you can get over the VPN. So it's a little investment, but I think $50 a year is definitely within range for people that care about the security of their data.
So wait, the VPN is going to different servers. Would I use Starbucks still? It seemed to me VPN was sort of a gateway.
Right. So what would happen is if you are using the public Wi-Fi from Starbucks, as soon as you got that connection, you will turn on your VPN Express software. And now all of the data using the connection through Starbucks would be routed into the private servers of, say, VPN Express, and it's all encrypted. So you now got your own private pipe that no one can look inside to see what are you doing. It's an encryption layer on top of the data. Starbucks just gave you the pipe into the internet.
Well, that sounds great. It sounds quite reasonable.
Yeah.
Back to, you talked about that, I couldn't tell, was it Sonicwall that you were talking about?
Sonicwall, or by now Dell actually purchased them just about a year ago, is one brand of firewall that we use quite often in small businesses. And the reason for that is it's a step down from Cisco. It's not as expensive, but it addresses many of the needs of small business, and one of them is budget. I mean, everyone would love to have an expensive piece of Cisco firewall, but it's going to cost them a lot of money. And since we're talking to small and mid-sized companies, oftentimes there's a question of budget. How can we build something that is still secure to a certain point with the money that we have at hand? There is never an endless budget, so we have to build solutions based on what companies can afford. So they're not going to say, well, it's out of range and we're going to do nothing about it, which is probably the worst.
So take me through this. I go and I get Dell's Sonic product. Then I want to believe that I just plug it in, but what are my expenses and what happens after that, and how do I maintain it? Because you mentioned a lot of other things that sounded like I needed to hire other people potentially.
Right. So it depends on the size of your company. So let's just say a typical small business might have maybe 10 users, maybe a little bit more than that. At that level, they might not have a full-time IT guy just because of the fact that they are small. They can't afford a position like that. Commonly, there would be an on-site remote support company that will manage their server, their workstations, and the firewall. They would be probably the one that when the new box arrive, they will configure that box. They would add few more security rules to it, and it can take about 2 hours of work, probably, of an IT guy, and they'll be up and running with the new firewall. As part of the routine that we do for our clients, when we check their servers, when we check other things on a regular monthly basis, or as often as the client requires, there would be also a checking of what is the firewall doing. And you can set up things that would be automated, so you can actually get alerts from the unit when something bad potentially is taking place. So it can be also proactive about letting you know that something is happening during a time of attack or anything like that. But we don't expect anyone at the size of 10 or even 20 users to be the person who actually sit down and look at the firewall logs or anything like that. We actually think that it's better for small businesses to do what they do great, which is doing their business, and let someone else, either a part-time IT admin if they have one, or oftentimes it would be a remote support company, to be able to spend small amount of time knowing exactly what they're looking for and keeping the network secure. It's a more efficient way to let the business focus on making money and let IT guys maintain that network.
So I'm still curious, how does a firewall work? Is that the same method as you mentioned with the VPN? Is that
so
just
the firewall
encoding and encrypting?
The firewall is slightly different. If you want to think of a firewall, think of your own house. The house has a door that everyone can come through. But in order for you to protect the house beyond just a lock that could be broken, you decide to put a bodyguard in front of the door. The bodyguard gets a list that you actually gave him before, and on that list it says, those 10 people are allowed to come in between those hours. Everyone else, block them. If they show up, tell them they cannot come in. The firewall kind of like does the same job. It has a bunch of rules and configurations that say, I want to allow this remote user to come in and do that kind of a work, but other person who is not on the approved list, block them out. and make a note that they actually try to come in. And that's important too, because once you identify a particular person, company, or maybe a competitor is trying to break into your network, wouldn't that be useful information to know in advance rather than after they figure out some way to break in? So the recording of the logs is quite important, so someone can identify during the process that the problem takes place, rather than a year later, someone is saying, well, they broke in and they've been trying for the last year, but no one knew about it. It was recorded, probably no one looked.
I still like a piece of the VPN, which you said to me encoded, or the
Right.
data from outgoing. So the firewall is protecting people from coming in. What's protecting me from the data we're doing at work out to the world?
So when you're inside your office, you purchased a private line that came from Time Warner or came from Verizon or AT&T. It's your line. You are not sharing it with anyone, and that's the advantage that you have. Now, because it's a public line, it means to get in, you must allow everyone in the world to communicate with you, with the exception of the firewall that is now becoming the bodyguard. It's like, again, it's a house, it's on a street. Anyone can drive to the street and attempt to come into your door. It's going to be the job of the bodyguard to say, you are not on my list, and because of that reason, you are not getting in. So the firewall is the one-stop gap between the public internet into the private network that you have. And even on your private network, just to be able to make clear on that one, if you are setting any kind of a Wi-Fi connection, you have to be very careful that that is protected. It has a password on it. It's using WPA2, which is a certain protocol that make it much more difficult to be able to break in. You probably want to get rid of the old Linksys or other old vendor that you had from 7 years ago, even if it's working. The odds are that one is very easily to be breaking through if it is just plain Wi-Fi connection. We had an interesting story at a client that what started as a simple mistake by a user ended up being a little bit of a pain. A client called in where their mail server was all of a sudden being blocked and they could not send outside email. It was all bouncing back, claiming that they are blacklisted and they cannot send emails to any of their clients. And obviously not a good thing for any business, and it was really unusual. Why did this happen? It took some investigation inside the network to find out why is this happening, because it wasn't coming from the server, but it was clearly showing, after looking at the traffic, that there is a device somewhere on the network that is sending hundreds of spam emails per minute. Of course, if you do that for long enough time, you would be marked as a spammer. That's what you are. More digging ended up being going to one of the executive people at this particular company to find out that they brought from home an iPad, and because the reception was not that great on the Wi-Fi, they went to Best Buy, they got a little Wi-Fi piece of equipment, plugged it into the network in the room, and had wonderful connection now because they were sitting right close by. What they didn't know is that a building next door to them had the bad guy, a hacker, who discovered that there was an open public Wi-Fi within range, and the guy from the other building was actually the one who was sending all the spam through. He just jumped on this open public Wi-Fi and sent tons of spam to anyone that he wanted, and the client was the one who basically ended up with the trouble. Bottom line is that particular executive did not get his bonus that particular year because it took some time to be able to clean up the mess and find out where it was coming from. So protect your Wi-Fi devices carefully. And for larger companies, maybe companies that we call mid-sized companies, when you have guests that are coming into your office, it is very common they would say, can you give me your Wi-Fi password so I can actually use my laptop at your office? And I know it's very tempting to just give them the main password, which is probably the one that also leads toward your files and everything else on the network. You can't. The best way to be able to do it is to have what we call a guest network. It's another wireless device. It's actually sitting outside of the perimeter of your real network, and all that it provides is internet access and nothing else. Even if that friend of yours or another client came in and they got a laptop that got a really big problem, which you don't know because you had never seen the machine, and your IT guy probably never visited that machine either. Even in that case, the worst that would happen is that they're going to be on your guest network, not on your real network. They would not mess up with any of your data, and they can't block your IP address because they're coming on a different IP. So just a little clue for probably the bigger than 10, I would say the 20 and the 30, when you're at that level, you can definitely afford another $100 to put another separate Wi-Fi unit for your guests. And you probably have guests when you're already at 30 people. People would come to your office and you'll have meetings and you'll do stuff that require internet access to guests. So something to think of.
Yeah, I guess we need to start thinking about this as a virus. I mean, when you were talking, I was thinking about protecting myself from getting sick in some way, that we really have to be more proactive, and sadly, we have to think in a way that people are evil.
Right. I think it's, I heard the other day someone that made an analysis, and it's a pretty fair one. When you're driving your car on the road, even if you're an excellent driver, you're still paying attention to all the cars around you, because if someone makes a mistake around you, they can basically bump into your car or cause an accident. You have to be proactive, but we're all still driving. We're not like hide in a cave and pretend that that's the only way not to get infected or not to have a problem. We continue using the web, and we are going to continue doing that. We just need to have better education about what to do and what not to do, and also sometime a small investment. We're not talking about large amount of money. Better protected from a situation that hackers would love to go after. When we're talking about antivirus and programs that can help, we like a lot a company that is called Malwarebytes. It's a free product. Anyone can get it. They have a free version and a premium version, but anyone should at least get the free version. I would say 95% of the time when we come into a new client and we install the program and run a scan, we would find anywhere from 20 to 500 different malware infections on a machine.
What is that product again? What's the name?
It's called Malwarebytes, MALEWARE bytes.com or .org, and you can download their product. It's a free product. It doesn't consume any processes or anything that will task your machine, and it would run a scan, and you can do an update and run a full scan on the system. We're talking now about a PC, and it will do a terrific job to be able to clean up infections. For people that use Macs, I can't tell you how many times we hear from people with a Mac that they say, I never get infected. There is no such thing as a virus for a Mac. It's really not true. It's a percentage game. And just because the Macs are still in the range of about 10% of the Mac in the world and 90% PC, we have a lot more infections for the PCs than the Mac, but there are definitely viruses that were written just for Mac. Another free product for small businesses to use and enjoy, anyone who's watching it, is made by Sophos, and that's spelled SAPHOS, sophos.com. If you go to their website, they have a wonderful free tool for home users or small companies that you can use, and it will do an antivirus protection for the system as well. Use it. Don't just run pure without an antivirus in place. I mean, and if you have a few more minutes on the Sophos website, they actually show a presentation of here's a Mac with and here's a Mac without. And they purposely throw on both of those Macs a virus infection. And guess what? The one with protection comes up with a nice warning that just blocked the infection. The one without got infected, and all kind of bad stuff starting to happen on the Mac. So the Macs are just another operating system that can be infected, and you should protect it just as well. When we're talking about server level, there are more sophisticated products, either from Symantec or a variety of different other companies that you can purchase antivirus software. Trend Micro you should have antivirus running in all cases to be able to filter out email infection, to be able to filter out viruses that come as a result of visiting a website. All of those ways, you need to have a live, real-time antivirus program that would run. To make sure that everyone understands, antivirus not always catching up malware infections. They're really two different animals. So we still recommend that you would have both on a machine. Keep your Malwarebytes and get your flavor of either McAfee or Trend Micro or Symantec. They can both live together on the same machine and they'll be fine. And they will catch different things. That's the key thing. There is no one particular software that can cover everything. So you want to have multiple layer of protections. That's the better way to go about it. Let's see. There is, when we're talking about other things that are important that we see on security for small businesses, updates. I know it sounds really, really boring, but people, especially on the PC and the Mac as well, if you don't do the monthly Microsoft updates, all the critical and security, you're basically putting a big sign on top of your computer and saying, I'm willing to be exposed to all of the known hacks out there just because I'm not taking the time to install updates and restart my machine. This doesn't stop just with the Microsoft updates. A lot of people would run Adobe Flash almost twice a month recently. You have to do updates, and they're all critical. If you're running Java for one reason or another, if you don't use it, really remove it. But if you have to use it for some program, you must update that as well. Adobe Reader, another common program that will get a lot of updates. The problem with that is really, really simple. Let's just say that you've been really negligent about updating your Adobe Reader, and someone sent you a PDF that actually has an infection. If you open it up with your older version of Adobe, you will get infected. If you had the newer one with the security patches, it will warn you that there is a problem with that file, and it would stop right there. So the difference is between an infected computer or an infected network, if it was able to spread, to do your updates, do the maintenance and the work that is required to be able to use the internet safely. Again, if we somehow comparing things to car, if you don't do your oil maintenance when it's necessary and you're just willing to drive the car to death, I guarantee you're going to blow the engine at the relatively low cost of doing oil maintenance when it was necessary. Is it extra work? Yes, it is. But it's part of basically using the system. So we highly encourage to do that. Some of those things can be done by the end users. Some of those things, when users get too busy or just telling their IT person, or if they have a remote management company like we do for our clients, we take the responsibility for that. But there's need to be a conversation. Someone needs to agree who is going to be doing it. So it's not going to fall in between where the users are not doing it and the vendor is not doing it until there's a problem. So someone needs to basically put a check mark on those things and say, I'm doing it and this is the routine, and that's how it's get done.
I think there's a challenge because it used to be that you had this work computer. Now people take their computers home to work, and there's a lot more sort of personal property involved. So companies have a challenge in making these rules that employees need to adhere to make it safe at work.
You bring in one of the critical points that in almost every security audit that we have done, we found to be a problem with. And this is where, even in a larger company, in a company that have 50 and 60 people, they would allow the remote executives that will connect at midnight or 10 p.m. or 7 p.m. when they're home, they would allow them remotely to connect into the corporate office to continue doing work. If you're a lawyer, I guarantee you that they go home and they continue doing work after dinner with the kids. They go back to work. And the risk with that one is IT control really, really well the systems that are inside the corporate office. Yet at the same time, they've given even a secure VPN connection to the remote user at home. But what are the odds that that remote computer at home has been inspected and tested and configured by the same IT people? Very, very small. Not only that, we find that oftentimes there would be one computer that the husband, wife, and 2 kids sometimes jumping on, and they're running Facebook, and everyone is doing their thing, but at some point at night, the husband or the wife, whoever belongs to the corporate location, is turning on the VPN and making a direct connection into the network. Guess what happened? If that machine during the time of playing with Facebook and running YouTube videos and whatever, if that hit a bad website, now there is actually a live infection on the machine, unknown to anyone. The moment that someone opened up the VPN connection and gave the credentials, now that executive is actually in the hands of the hacker. Anything that the executive can reach, if it is data, if it is financials, the hacker is basically doing the same thing. When that executive would go to sleep, the hacker would just go back to work and would clean up that entire corporate account. And when IT guy would wake up in the morning, you know who is he going to be blaming? The executive. He's going to say, what have you done last night? You took all of our data. Executive would say, I went to sleep. I've done nothing. And of course, any further investigation of the machine would reveal that there was already an infection unknown to anyone. So we recommend that machines that are set up for executives at their home would be purchased by the corporate office. Why? Because you can control it. If you buy that machine, you can tell the executive, you and only you would use it. And we have the right to connect to it, to do updates, to test it, to do whatever we want. You cannot install any program on that machine. That's our machine. And everything that we do in the office, you have to obey.
You know, that sort of sounds to me a little antiquated because that sounds expensive, and I'm not really in the corporate world right now, but I definitely lived in the corporate world, and when I was at Time Warner, many of those things were applied to me, and now I have more appreciation for the VPN that they insisted on putting on. But do you think companies still would do something like give you 2 computers and those sorts of things? Do you see that?
It really hurts when they don't, and when basically the break-in or the breach is coming up that way. So a common breach, if it was really a company of, let's say, 50 users, between data that potentially was stolen, the reputation, if they had any HIPAA data or anything that need to be disclosed because a lot of client information was stolen, it's likely to be in the millions of dollars or maybe even closing up that firm altogether. So if someone would ever argue that for spending another $600 or $700 to buy the executive a machine, that really doesn't make any sense. I hope that they are not on the board of directors because they're going to have to answer some really difficult questions later on to like, why did this happen? How come that wasn't just part of doing business by providing our 5 executives, whoever, as many as they are, with machines that are safe to be able to use from home? Why did we take that risk? It is a risk-reward calculation. I mean, I can tell you that in security, you can throw a lot of money to be able to build walls and more security. But all of it normally ends up with risk-reward. How much money would it cost to be able to solve a problem, and what's the risk that we're taking if we're not going to do it? And if the numbers play well, then most companies or decision makers would say, let's do it. It makes sense. And you gain control. So sometimes it doesn't have to be an executive in a company. How about if it was, let's say, a remote user, an employee that works from home? Do you know how much trouble it is when it's a personal computer of the employee to clean the data that belongs to the company out of that machine? Or if the employee said, that's mine, I'm not even giving you the computer. You don't even know what's on the system.
That's a good scenario because more and more people are working remote. I mean, that's really the culture.
Right. And these days, with bring your own device into the office, one of the challenges is people bring their cell phones, and a lot of time it's their personal phones. It's not a business phone. It's your own iPhone that you purchased, and someone set up for you an email account, and that email account has documents, and it has all kind of information that belongs to the company. The real way to be able to clean it up at the end is a complete wipe. But would the employee agree that you would actually wipe their phone? I guess if you sign them on the right paperwork in the beginning and they agree to that if they are terminated from the company, that the IT person can send a command and wipe their phone, then it's fine. But if it's not, he walks away, he got some data, and everyone is worried about what kind of information he still got on the phone. Did he really delete it all or not? Did he put it on a USB drive or not? It's very, very tricky. That is actually another layer of complexity when it comes to that.
Well, I remember deals and contracts where they say you'll delete everything at the termination or whatever, but we can't really, because somebody may have copied that data to 10 million other places or drives or disks.
It could be on Dropbox, just because of the fact that that employee has a Dropbox connection. Everything is in the Dropbox personal account, not the corporate account. So even when he gives away the computer, it's still in Dropbox. So the hope is that he's not going to go to work for the competition, because there might be some information in there that you really don't want to go away from the company. Yeah, it can be a challenge. Okay, so a few more things that business can do that I think would help them out. User education. I mean, we think that that is quite important as well. Some people know more about technology, some people know less. But to some level, if you're already at the point of 30 or 50 people, you can be held responsible if you had not run your people through some class, even if it was online, or for an hour to be able to have one of your conference room with someone who can give them an overview of security, what to do and what not to do. And it's quite stunning sometimes to know the difference between what people understand and not. So there's always going to be the one that don't know that many phishing attacks would come through a UPS email and a FedEx email and an IRS email, and they are so naive about double-clicking on anything that says, we tried to deliver the package and we couldn't. Click here for the details, and they just go for it. So when people hear more about it, they potentially can save the company a lot of money by making that one expensive mistake. And there are other things that users can learn, even if they are remote users and they work from home. They can improve their security processes. They probably will be told about not to use the Wi-Fi. They probably would be told about if someone hands you a USB or you found a USB just outside in the hallway, please do not connect the computer. Because you may think you're going to get some nice pictures out of it, but you're really infecting the rest of the network. I mean, not everyone knows it. I mean, I guess for us in the IT business, we heard a lot of, and we've seen enough stories, but I think that a lot of people just try to live the real life, and it's like, never heard about it. I didn't know that this could be a problem to connect a found USB into my laptop. Really big issue. Ransomware. That is one thing that a lot of hackers making boatload of money these days. What ransomware is a certain type of infection that once they got into a workstation, someone double-clicked on, say, an email from FedEx, which was supposed to look like a package, but it's not. That workstation get infected, and the next thing that the ransomware, for example, CryptoWall 3 is one common infection, it would look immediately for the server. These guys are not fools. They're looking immediately for where is the data, and they would go and encrypt all of your Word, Excel, Quickbooks, pictures, documents, databases, anything that is real value would get encrypted, and the key to be able to open up or decrypt that information is stored only in their servers out on the web. You will get a nice, lovely message on your screen that would say you got infected with such and such. You have to pay something that would be around $500, or used to be 2 Bitcoins, but it's changing because Bitcoin's price change all the time. So now you have the problem of if you didn't have a backup, and that's really the key. If you do not have a backup system in place, and when you say backup, I'll take it one step further. Some people say, I have a backup. I have this external hard drive, which I back up all the data into. They would encrypt the external drive as well. These guys, when I said that they're not fools, I mean it. They're looking, if you have Dropbox, they would go to the Dropbox. So any data that is physically connected into the network over a cable or even over the internet would get encrypted as well. Your only safety is to have what we call sometimes an offline backup. If you still use tapes, sounds very old, but believe me, saves the day sometime. you can take a tape from the day before, and on that tape, which never got any of the bad data encrypted, you'll be able to restore your data. So we highly recommend that you have a backup system that would be at least an A, B, and C. And when I say that, A is, let's say, on your server, B is maybe on external drive or backup system into a tape, and C might be you already took one copy of that data and you stored it in another place, maybe at an executive home, maybe in a bank, maybe in another location. The concept behind that one would be if you had a situation of fire or flood or theft in your office, it's the last thing that you want to have all of the data stored in one location. You're going to lose it. Your safety would be, let's go to the other place where we have the one tape or the one drive that contained the critical data and rebuild this network again. So be aware of those type of crypto infections that are very easy to get infected. You can actually get infected these days even just by getting into the wrong website and clicking on a link. That would be enough. So really big danger and cost quite a bit of money to repair. So we really recommend taking extra precaution and, again, educating users about this particular problem. Let's see. All right, operating system, just very briefly. I hope that no one is using any more Windows XP. I know that they are still out there in the world, but I would hope that most businesses in the United States get rid of Windows XP. It is by now unprotected, unpatched, and if you're running it, you're basically agreeing that someone can basically break right into your system, and Microsoft is not going to help you because they already retired that particular operating system. So Windows 7 and above would be the right way to go for sure. Plugins I talked very briefly about, anything from Adobe. Flash is the most common one to get infected with. And just to give a simple idea, if you go, for example, on a Yahoo website, and on your right-hand side you have a bunch of little windows for advertising that are running, one of those windows can come from a server that already got infected. And just because you got on the Yahoo website and it's running that infected server, if you have an old version of Adobe Flash, you're toasted. It's over. You didn't even have to click on anything. You just visited a site that basically had something that can take advantage of a flaw on one of your plugins. So really, really important to stay on top of it. This is not just to make you work. This is real way that the bad guys are getting into systems, and you got to do something about it. If you are not, one thing that we suggest to people that use Flash, it has the option to choose disable by default, and only when you want to, let's say, look at an ESPN video, you'll click on it and it would say, would you like to enable that particular Flash player? And you would say, yes. And at that time, you basically get to watch the Flash video that you wanted, in comparison to the other way where they took away control from you and you just visited the website and now you're dead. So we like that option. One more step, but again, it helps out quite a bit. Passwords, we love that. People use insane simple passwords, things that can be broken within 5 seconds or less. If your password is only 4 or 5 or even 6 characters, and typically it would be, I don't know, ABC123 password or any of the other nonsense that people still using, even larger words out of a dictionary, a few seconds to be able to crack them. The really difficult passwords right now would probably require something that is called a password manager, which is a little program that you can buy. It's probably about 30 or 40 bucks. Then probably there are even few that are totally free. 1Password is one of those programs, but there are many others that you can choose from. And what would happen with those is they would follow you to start with because they are cloud hosted. So if you have an iPad and an iPhone and a computer, once you install that program, the program would generate extremely long, complicated passwords for you. We're talking about 25 to 30 characters, symbols, and something that no one can remember. No human can actually remember, but the program can. And the program would apply the proper long password into the website that you want it to go with. So what you're doing with it is you created one master password that you have to remember. That's the key to all the other passwords. And the program automatically apply your complicated passwords to the many different programs that you got. Very difficult to break, and with these days, I think a lot of people would have anywhere from 30 to 50 passwords easily for the different things. It's your one way not to carry in your little wallet or your purse a little notebook that says, here's all of my passwords, which would be terrible. And that's a really bad idea. Another thing to consider with passwords is don't use the same passwords for multiple websites. And the reason for that is if your Yahoo account was broken, and if by any chance you use the same password on your Gmail, and your Amazon, and your iTunes, it's the first thing that they will do. As soon as they cracked your Yahoo account, they would check all the commercial websites with the hope that you're using the same password. Before you know it, you'll end up with a lot of purchases. So one password, complicated password per site, and find some way to be able to live with it. And I think that the only possible way that I'd seen is using a password manager, because no one can really keep track of all of their passwords. Too much.
Okay, well, I'm sufficiently overwhelmed with the things that I need to do, having a little business of my own. So,
yeah.
And I know lots of people do walk around carrying notebooks of their passwords. I mean, that is the what everybody does now.
Right. There's another thing that I want to show, and that actually is really, really important. We talked a little bit before about the money, and many people have brokerage accounts, for example, Fidelity or E-Trade or anything else that they're using. And some people have direct access to the account and probably able to make trades, to buy stocks, to sell some stocks, or anything like that. Commonly, even Bank of America or anyone else, you would end up with just a username and password, and that would be the only thing that is necessary. That today is just not sufficient, not enough. And the reason for that is if you're just typing in a username and then you're typing in a password, and someone already put a little piece of software on your machine that would be like a keylogger, or even watching what are you doing, what are the things that you're doing, they already got your username and password if you were infected with such a thing. And the moment that you walk away from your system, or they can do it even on another machine, they can log in into your Bank of America, because now they know your username and password, and they can start making transfers, or they can do whatever it is that they're willing to do. If it was your brokerage account, well, maybe they want to run a stock. They will just buy a lot of a particular stock with your money to their advantage, whatever it is. I mean, all of them can lead into a big problem. So one technology that is in place and implemented by quite many institutions, not all, but it's getting better, is called two-factor authentication, or sometimes it's called two-factor verification. In short, sometimes people call it 2FA, just the letters, the number 2, the letter F like Frank, and the letter A like Apple. And I'm using it on a number of accounts that I have. I have to hide my credential ID because it's going to go live. So what this program does, and it's free, it's called VIP Access. It would change 6 digits every 30 seconds. So this number, I don't care because it will change all the time. I'll just show it to the camera. Oops. Okay. So here we go. So that number that is showing in a circle is actually changing all the time. I'll put it here. Maybe it would show better. Kind of hard to see it. VIP Access is the name of the program, and the advantage of it is you need to have your cell phone with you, and you have to obviously know what's your password on your phone and read manually out of the phone what is the unique code at the time that you're trying to log in to a website that you want to. Why is this important? So let's just say that I'm the hacker right now, and I already got your computer done. I already got your username and password. I have only one problem when the next screen that comes up is saying, please give me the 6-digit code, which is on your phone, and I don't have your phone. At that point of time, I'm stuck because I got halfway through, but without physically holding up your phone and starting that program, I can't make any further progress. And if I try to just guess some numbers, they're probably going to lock me up and send you an alert that someone's trying to break into the account. So the two-factor is referring to another device. That's the second factor. Another piece of equipment, not the computer. Cannot be the computer. It cannot be another program on the computer because anyone already on the computer can read it too. The second thing that sometimes is in use, and it's very, very cool, we'll see if people can see it. It looks like a little credit card of some sort. Again, I had to hide the security ID, but it has a little teeny tiny, what looks like a button. And if I push that button, there would be a little 6-digit code that would come on that little card, and that changes every 30 seconds as well. So those numbers are unique to the particular company that I want to work with. At one point of time when I got the card, I had to make a call, tell them who I am, they identify that you are, and they make a marriage between the card or the phone into your account. Only that phone, only that card with the proper code is in sync with your account. No one else can do it. This is extremely helpful when you have accounts that have money in them and you now not being held by username and password. Oftentimes that would save the day and potentially save businesses, both individuals and businesses, from having their money stolen. We're now talking about flat money. This is real money, not even data. This is hard-earned money sitting in a bank account that people don't want to lose to the bad guys.
How much does that cost?
So the program that you can put on your phone, and it goes both for the Android and the Apple, the iPhone, the VIP access, totally free. You just go to the Apple store and you download the program, and you have to make one phone call to the vendor that you're working with to set it up. So the only cost to you would be a telephone call, nothing else. The cards, some of the companies would actually send it to you, but if they say, well, you need to purchase that, that would be about $25. I think that Bank of America would give you a card for free if you have a bank account with them, but none of them giving that by default. You really have to make the call and say, I want to speak with the security department because I want to get two-factor authentication. They will transfer you. Once you actually ask for that, they will get you to what you want, but none of them yet sending you a letter in the mail to say, we got this wonderful system in place. Why don't you add that into your account? Because it's costing money. So at this point of time, you have to be proactive and call and ask the question, and they will give it to you without any problem. The only limit that I'd seen, not everyone implemented already that technology. Even certain large banks, and I'm not going to name them, are in the process of implementing it. So to the benefit of Bank of America, I can tell you they have that in place. Fidelity has that in place. E-Trade got it in place, but not everyone. So hopefully with more even consumers calling in and saying, why would this bank give it to me and you guys don't? It will encourage them to be able to raise the bar about protecting your own money. And another thing that is important to know, especially for business owners, you're all welcome to take a look at the terms and conditions that you signed when you opened the account, but it will state over there that if someone got into your computer and used the proper credentials, username and password, and took the money away from your account, you have 48 hours or less to discover that, or you are really in a big trouble. The bank is not going to be responsible for that. They would say you should have had better security. So having another mechanism that protects you would just help you not to have this difficult conversation with a banker if someone stole your money. So I definitely, I don't know anyone who doesn't care about their money. Let's put it this way. We work so hard to be able to earn it, so I hope that everyone, at least on that part, would agree that it's worthwhile to take the extra steps. I had covered, I think, the majority. Oh, there is actually one more thing that I would suggest to people to do. If you're taking a laptop with you out of the office, especially if you have clients' data, if you have any confidential information on your machine, make sure that you have with you the data in an encrypted format. There are different programs that can do it. Symantec have a product for that. Microsoft have a product for that. The reason is, let's just say that you have your laptop in your car and you went to the movies or you went to the market. Someone broke a window and they stole that laptop away from your car. If that laptop was encrypted and all the data was encrypted, you don't even have to report to any governing body that the laptop was stolen and it had information on it. Why? Because it's encrypted. And the information is not going to be available to the people. But on the other hand, if you had a database of clients and it has some private information or anything like that, now it became a legal issue if someone stole that laptop and potentially it will end up in the wrong hands. Now you have the responsibility to actually report that you lost a piece of equipment that contained information of other people. And that's a really big problem. So if data is traveling away from the office, you better have it encrypted. So no flash drives with the entire database of the client sitting in your pocket, because maybe you would lose that flash drive. It doesn't even mean that you lost it to a hacker. The fact that you lost it is already a problem. No one really knows who's going to get to it, but it creates for you the legal responsibility to say, I've lost 1 million records. I don't know who took it, but I lost it. So encrypt the data. If you don't take any data out of the office, it's not so much of an issue. But if you do have confidential information or any personal identifying information, that's a requirement. Any questions for me after all of this?
I think you've given us so much good stuff that we can really take action on that is not expensive. Some of it's free, and that we should both heed your advice, both personally and for our businesses. So,
right.
I mean, there's some things I'm going to discuss with my husband when he gets home that I've learned from this session today. So,
and another thing to just keep in mind, if you have an IT person in the company, have a security conversation with them. Ask them some of the questions related to what you hear in this webinar about how are we protected, because it will open up an open conversation that probably few things would come up that you can do. Even if you wouldn't do all of them, every step that you're taking would improve your situation, both at the business and at home. And in cases where you absolutely have no IT that can help you out, then like anything else, seek the help of other professionals that can give you help with this. Anyone who watched this particular webinar and want to contact us, you're welcome to email or call me. I'll be more than happy to address any questions that you might have after watching it. And if there's something we can help you out, we'll be happy to do that. And thank you.
Thank you so much for all of this. Really appreciate it. And everybody can contact you, get the information through our website at SoCalDigitalSymposium.com. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Donna. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.